p.m. Pacific. Check out therundownlive.com. Mike P. Kristan H. The Rundown, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Check out therundownlive.com.
What up, guys? We are live here. It is Monday, July 28th, live here on the Rundown Live, rundownlive.com. Mike Pachesney, Kristan Harris. We have a guest today. Bruce Fenton's going to be on the show with us.
Yeah, my good friend Bruce Fenton is going to be joining us. It'll be exciting to talk to him and catch up with him. Last time we talked to Bruce, he was doing some real-life Indiana Jones stuff.
Your mic just cut out, Kristan. I don't know what just happened there, but I'm pretty sure. Not sure what's happening here. It was like I heard an EMP or something go off there in the background. I don't know what the hell happened. Anyway, guys, we are back here live. It is Monday, July 28th. We just got knocked off the air there. That was interesting, but we are back. Mike Pachesney, Kristan Harris, rundownlive.com. We have a guest today. Bruce Fenton's going to be on with us. That was a weird one. I don't know how that happened, man.
Yeah, that's pretty bizarre, Mike. It seems like we've been having some interesting technical difficulties here. But yeah, I'm really excited to have Bruce back. Good friend. I know last time we talked to him, he was doing some real-life Indiana Jones work in the jungle of Ecuador. He actually may have discovered the lost city of giants, some mountains that they thought were pyramids, or excuse me, some mountains that ended up being some kind of like big structure or pyramid or something.
Well, they were like megalithic ruins. They weren't like pyramids necessarily, I guess, but they were just like blocks and strange items that appeared to be like tools and stuff. So
yeah, it was very cool stuff, and we're gonna get an update with what happened with that. We're also gonna talk about his recent voyage. He's been recording an TV show for the Discovery Channel. It'll be very interesting to see what they're gonna talk about. I know he mentioned something about may have possibly found the bone castle of the Georgian myth. So really excited. I met Bruce through giant. We have a similar interest in giant human skeletons, and I believe I was referred to him by a friend of mine. I think Klaus Dana recommended Bruce.
And we've talked about it. We've had him on the show before, and we've had Klaus and all these guys.
That'll be very interesting. Yeah, I'm excited. But anyways, we should probably get into things, Mike.
Right. Well, let's talk about the site real quick before we bring Bruce on.
Sure. If you guys haven't had a chance to yet, Mike and I put up articles every day on the Rundown Live. There's always new information on there for you guys, so definitely check that out. Also, if you'd like to support what Mike and I do here, you can do that by actually sharing our articles on Facebook and Twitter, and tell your friends to check into the Rundown Live right now. It's in the message.
Well, I mean, it looks like we're live right now.
We're live right now?
Yeah, it does look like we are live. So, I mean, I don't know what's going on. This is bizarre. This is bizarre. But we are live, so maybe we should just go to Bruce.
All right. Well, obviously, we've had a ton of technical difficulties today here. Craziness at the Rundown Live. As you know, if you want to help us out with a better operation, you guys can always donate. We survive on your donations out there. All right, we're going to go ahead and bring Bruce Fenton on. If you want to know anything about the Rundown Live, just check out the website. Thank you to FPRN, Daily Paul, and things of that nature.
We have apps and all kinds of fancy stuff. We talk about them all the time. We're having tech issues, so we can skip it, man. It's fine.
Yeah, we're going to bring on Bruce right now.
If you guys want to check out the site, rundownlive.com, let's talk about Bruce a little bit. He's been on the show before. We talked a lot about ancient hidden histories and interesting structures and artifacts and, you know, just pretty much things that appear to be hidden history. It seems like that's been the topic that we've talked about with Bruce and others as well. So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, I've had many conversations with Bruce. In fact, I've kept in touch with him. We've talked over Skype multiple times, trying to see where he's been, what he's been up to on this big giant dig that he's been dealing with, as well as some other interesting things. He's like a real-life Indiana Jones. Obviously, he was in the jungle in Ecuador, hacking away at the jungle with a giant sword out there or something. I don't know, but I think we might have Bruce joining us. Bruce, are you with us?
I certainly am. Yeah, thanks for having me back on. It's great. I really enjoyed being on your show. It's
How
fun.
you doing, man?
We're excited to have you on, man.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, you're a hands-on kind of guy, figuring out some stuff that may not necessarily be kind to the mainstream sciences.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the whole spectrum for me. It's the ancient mysteries. The out of place objects and the supernatural. Anything that I guess that the mainstream doesn't like. Conspiracies. Any of that. I mean, I look at it. That's the bottom line. And if I can be sort of proactive and go out there and find something that perhaps someone else hasn't in any of those areas, then I'm happy to try that. So I suppose I try and cover all the topics that you guys cover. I suppose.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Kristan.
Well, that's pretty interesting, Bruce. I know last time we talked to you, we were talking about the lost city of giants and how you were going to make it down there. And I want to kind of go back into that and start kind of give our listeners an update on how that went for you and how exciting it was. Because I know that you personally went down there, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I managed to drag myself through the swamp. I mean, it is literally
how was the trip?
Swamp.
Oh, what was it like? Is it like like in the movies where you see them chopping through jungle for hours? You're worried about lions and tigers and stuff, or what?
Not as bad as that. I mean, I did bring along a machete, but the other guy had a bigger one, and he said that we didn't need mine. I was a bit upset, but I carried it along anyway. But yeah, he kind of did more of the chopping. He had the bigger sword. I have to admit it. He did have the bigger sword, so I had to let him chop the way through. But
well, hey, two swords are better than one. We all know that. Yeah. Come on now.
Well, I wanted to keep mine just in case. You never know. Some dangerous,
deranged monkey. Yeah, you never know.
Starts throwing coconuts at you or something.
Yeah, so you do sort of think I should have it with me. All those survival shows we've watched. Never go into the jungle without a knife.
I'd be more worried about snakes. I know,
but
I think that would be my concern.
Yeah. Yeah, I did ask him about snakes. He said in that particular area he doesn't see many of them, thankfully. So I think when you get into the deeper part of the jungle there, then yes. I mean, just to give an idea, I mean, the way into this site is through a swamp, really. So I suppose it kind of puts off a lot of wildlife that would, you'd find in other areas of the jungle. So I guess unless it's I don't suppose many animals want to live in the swampiest part. So that's kind of why we didn't really see a lot of the wildlife. But yeah, it makes it a horrendous walk because you're literally kind of, dragging your feet out of like pretty deep mud for a lot of the way. It's a gum boots walk. Otherwise you wouldn't get there. You're literally stepping up to your knees sometimes in mud and dragging yourself out again. So it's a really hard slog for several hours to get there.
I feel tired just hearing you talk about it, man.
Yeah, I've still got bruises on my feet from weeks and weeks ago. So I mean, it was really hard going in that respect. And initially, you go through the swamp, and then you enter into, I suppose, more typical jungle. But yeah, initially, you are really dragging yourself along, and eventually, you sort of hit a downward slope, which is more like a mudslide. I mean, I think if you sort of let go, just sort of slid, you could probably get down to the bottom, but in a lot of pain. But it was probably about half a kilometer or so, just going pretty much, clinging onto branches and stuff, clambering down like a mudslide sort of thing. So to get down to this, the bottom part of the wall, and then obviously the wall is about it's about I think it's probably about a sort of 60-degree angle. So you got to clamber up that to have a look around. So yeah, there's a bit of climbing involved as well, up and down.
Did you make a treasure map? Jeez, Bruce.
I could do with that. I didn't have a GPS, unfortunately, on me. So I would have liked to have plotted, the route properly. But again, these are things I haven't been able to afford to buy, and nobody has sort of volunteered to give me one or anything. So what you got, which is my backpack with a few tools and the camera and stuff. Not much else. So it's a bit of a shame because I would have liked to have been able to show everyone a kind of approximate map. But yeah, it's basically about 4 hours sort of slog to get there, and then when you're on site, I mean, as soon as you get to just before the wall, really, you're noticing stone artifacts in the mud. They are strewn around, and I think if you would clear any amount of the jungle there, you would find an extraordinary amount of stone hand tools. They're in the stream, which it's supposedly a river, but it's not like a stream. Depends on the rain. But there's a river there, which is was pretty low, and it had artifacts in there. There was artifacts in the mud on the slide on the way down. You could see them, buried in the mud, sort of strange stones that were clearly part of structures or something, that had been worked. And then on the wall itself, you've got other artifacts dotted around on the wall. We found a piece of pottery. And also, there's quite clearly a kind of mortar between some of the blocks. So I've got a small sample of that which needs to be tested, and the pottery.
So there's definitely interesting things. I just kind of want to slow it down a little bit because I guess we didn't really let people know why you were even in the area. It was you were actually working on an operation, right? You were working on some kind of television program, right?
No, this is different, Mike. This is from last show.
Oh,
we're talking about the last show. We're catching up because he was going to go out to the site and he didn't on the last show.
So it's the second site, okay.
We're talking about the first site still.
Yeah, I got you, okay. I wasn't sure if this was the one you were filming on, so we have not got to that site yet.
No,
okay.
Bruce, that's pretty neat. How do you think that the people got there prior? And is it near any important resources that you noticed, or anything that would attract people to have to go through that in order to live out there?
Well, supposedly in the Yanganatis, some of the rivers there do have, particles of gold in them. So, I mean, in the past, the Inca had some gold collecting operations and some gold mines in the Yanganatis. So there is gold in that area. I mean, I'm not saying it's necessarily right there by that wall, but I mean, within that jungle, there is known to be deposits of gold. Other than that, no, I can't think of another obvious resource out there that you couldn't find in an easier condition somewhere else. But I would certainly hypothesize that this construction was made before the jungle was actually in that location, and that it's grown over it, because it doesn't seem reasonable to try and create something that big in those conditions now, with being so swampy and overgrown and whatnot. It's not the kind of a place you could imagine setting up a camp and kind of starting to build a construction project. It would have to been done before the jungle had got to that place. So how long ago that is, I'm not sure, but I think we're talking certainly thousands of years. Looking at the state of the wall itself as well, the weathering, the water erosion, I think it's fair to say this is going back a long way. Probably about, just to give you an idea, I think about 3-4 kilometers from there, there's a site which my guide has sort of located actually in his village, which is Colony Azwai, on the edge of the jungle. And there he's found what I think is burial mounds, but basically he showed me some artifacts from his field. And these are, I think, clearly Panzaleo artifacts, which is a culture in that region. And these are Neolithic hand maces, and these go back about 2,000 years. And you can see the almost pristine condition of them, and then you compare them to artifacts you see at the wall site, and you can see it's quite clear this is going back much further than these Panzaleo people.
Yeah, and some of these artifacts you found, they were actually huge, right? These they had like a huge hammerheads, like things that not normal humans probably would not swing. So this is what led you to believe that this might have possibly been the last, or remnants of the last giant race or last city of giants.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there was hammers or pounding tools which are extraordinarily large. I was also told by another chap who's been in there that he witnessed a large, I suppose you'd have to say it's like a pestle and mortar, but with the bowl part coming up sort of to your waist, and with an enormous pounding, object inside it. So I mean, who would really need something that big, to grind, corn or something? It seems a bit unreasonable. What the use was for it, who knows? But it was certainly oversized. And then you have these other objects, which again, I don't know, call them hammers or a pounding tool, but certainly they look like they were for smashing something, don't they? But yeah, they're oversized. So this has given us the idea that the people there may well have been oversized. And that's not a total leap based on these objects. There's a cave system not far away from there called the San Pedro Caves. And I was told by one of the locals, actually one of the explorers who went in there, his partner, she was aware from her father that when that cave was first entered, going back early into the last century, they found a large collection of bones. And he said he directly, witnessed large bones in there that were too large for a normal human, and that he saw as being the leg bones and stuff of giants in there amongst human bones. And that is probably about 5-10 kilometers away from this site. So you have evidence of giants in that area, but unfortunately those bones were all taken away to a museum somewhere in Quito. I don't know if there'd be any way for someone to track them down. Possibly they may be in a vault under the museum. So there is evidence that there were abnormally large people in that area beyond just these hammers.
Very interesting, Bruce. So I have to ask you, How did you end up on Discovery Channel or on this show anyways? How was this just
Sure.
a dumb luck thing, or is it something that somebody contacted you, or did they want to know about your work? And let's get into that a little bit. I'm really excited for you that you're getting this attention. It's well deserved. You're a hard worker, and I know that you're very passionate for finding the truth. So I'm really excited to hear basically what this is about. I don't really know a lot about the Georgian myth and the Bone Castle, but I found it very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it came about one following the other. Really, the Ecuador site led me to being on the show because the team that are filming Unexplained Files on Science Channel, they were looking for people that were involved with giant research, and they must have come upon my website, you know, because of the Lost City of Giants. And initially, they were thinking of flying out here to film and have us, you know, all go into the jungle and, you know, do some filming. But they had to weigh up because they already had another location in Georgia, which they had kind of, I guess, agreed to film at, and in the balance they decided they couldn't do two, you know, significant journeys with filming for one episode, so they decided to go with Georgia because it already had a couple of
And this
scientists.
isn't the American Georgia. This isn't the state of
No.
Georgia, right?
No, this is the Georgia that probably nobody listening to this has ever been to.
Right.
To guess. I mean, I you know, I had no knowledge about Georgia beyond that. I knew the Russians had you know, that incursion into Georgia a few years back. And that's all really I knew about Georgia, and that's something about a separatist republic there, which sounded a bit dangerous, you know. So, you know, really just, you know, those remnants of news stories that you have in the back of your mind. But I didn't know anything about the culture or their history, if I'm honest. I mean, I had to sort of start Googling and find out a bit more about Georgia when they sort of mentioned it. And then, yeah, in the balance, they decided they were not going to film Georgia, but they would still want me involved and have me sort of go on as the, I suppose, the giant expert, although I wouldn't say I was an expert on giants, but somebody who had, you know, a knowledge of the subject and who could, you know, articulately speak on this subject, because they were concerned that the local researchers that we were meeting, you know, might not have a full command of the English language, and it might not come across well to the viewers. So that's why they ended up sort of saying, you know, can you come along and do this? I mean, they had spoken to, I think, one or two other people in the giant research field. I believe they'd spoken to Jim Vieira.
Yeah, Jim's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think he was able to go. From what I understand, he had other engagements. So unfortunately, he missed out on that one. But, you know, he has sort of contacted me and asked a little bit about it. So I'm going to update him, you know, with what I saw there, because it's been pretty fascinating. So yeah, you could say, yeah, that really one thing's led to another after another. Because I mean, you know, I started off here in Ecuador. We had all sorts of strange stuff, which led to our first book, The Ancient Aliens in Australia, dealing with a subject really on the other side of the world with Stephen and Evan Strong of ForgottenOrigin.com. And then that kind of, I suppose, led on in a way to then on to this Ecuador Lost Cities thing. And then that has kind of led on to flying to Georgia. And so, you know, who knows where it goes next. But that's kind of been the flow of events in the last couple of years for me.
It just seems like there would be more interest in some of these sites, like, you know, especially the stuff in Ecuador, and now all this we're hearing about in Georgia. It's just like, why aren't there more scientists? Why aren't there more digs? Why aren't there more investments in people that are doing these journeys like yourself?
I don't know is the clear answer to that, because, you know, you see a lot of content out there that just churns over and over and over with websites and, you know, documentaries and shows, and these new places don't seem to be getting the amount of attention they deserve, and I don't really understand that. You know, there's a lot of people there who claim a strong interest in these subjects, and a lot of, you know, academics that do as well, and yet, you know, these sites are just there with nobody doing anything about them. So I find it pretty incredible. I mean, I suspect the site in Ecuador is, you know, going back well over 5,000 years, and you know, I'm being conservative. I think more like 12,000 years old. That area is not known to have any human habitation in it, so it's a complete anomaly. There's an 80-meter high wall in the jungle, which I now know goes on for some distance, because I mean, the guy I work with, he went into another location and found the same type of wall, and I would say that it's the same wall. You know, this is an enormous 80-meter high wall that goes for a long distance through the jungle, doubtless around a site, probably a city, you know, or at least a town, and yet nobody's really that interested beyond, you know, perhaps going on my website.
Well, we forgot all about it. It's all forgotten.
I think,
don't ask questions, you know, it's gone away. Go ahead, Kristan.
I believe ridicule is probably the biggest reason in the science community, because, you know, everyone's so quick to ridicule because this is so outside the realm of science. But a lot of the things that we've been taught we've just been taught wrong, you know. And I think that's very interesting to see a lot of people who are taking interest in this topic. Obviously, I'm one of those people who has had incredible interest in giant human skeletons with my research on the newspaper clippings and things of that nature. So that's very interesting. So what's the history behind this Georgian myth?
Yeah, talk a little about what was going on there, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, Georgia has a fairly rich history of, I suppose, of belief or myths, regarding giants. There's, from what I understand, 3 types of giants that are involved in these. You have what's called the Devi, which are these very large, muscular characters with little horns on their heads. I think on the article I sent you across, there's a picture of a statue of one of these. And these are ones that, supposedly used to carry people off and whatnot. But then there is also an Alma, which is what we would refer to really as a Yeti. And then there seems to be also legends there of the biblical type giants, the apparently something to do with the sons of Noah being there at some point, and some Nephilim type beings incorporated into this legend of the Noah being there, or his sons being there. And there's a kind of a history of certain biblical characters having been in Georgia, and also the presence of these biblical giants. Now, when we say biblical giants, they also differentiate between 2 kinds of biblical giants. There's what we might refer to as simply very large humans, and then also the Nephilim type, a supernatural type being. So I suppose you could say, in that regards, there's 4 types of giants in their mythology. What we really went there to see, I suppose, was bones of one of them. But in theory, I guess that they assumed it would be one of the tall human types. I suppose you always start at the most likely to find.
Like
I guess.
7 to 9 feet tall. We mean by that, right?
Yeah, I mean, the bones, to go back a little bit, there were some bones were found in 2008 by a team that went into this site. They hiked up there based on a story they'd heard from a local sort of farmer, that he had stumbled on a crypt with giants buried in it. And there was 2 giants sitting in chairs at a table inside this crypt. So an unusual burial. And as you'll know from your research, a lot of these burials up in the northern US, the giants are buried in unusual positions, sometimes standing up, sometimes sitting down.
Yeah, you're right. They're sitting, they're crouching. It's always a different position. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of fits that same pattern. So that was the description of this burial. They hiked up there. This is some years later, and when they found the site, the crypt roof had collapsed in, and it was there's quite a bit of earth in there and leaves and whatnot. But they did an initial exploratory kind of dig, and they found bones straight away. A number of bones, which they sort of photographed, and they took some samples back to the capital for examination by a very respected professor there, and he came up with the possibility that this was a human type being that would have been around about 2.5 to 3 meters tall. So a very big guy, and in that range again, like you say, in that 7 to 9 foot range, which a lot of the giants seem to fall into. The ones that have been found in the northern US anyway, in the burial mounds. So again, it seemed to fit this, the same pattern. And so there was a hope of a follow-up expedition, and this didn't happen for a long time partly because of the Georgian war with Russia, and then a lack of resources and funds after that. So for several years, nothing happened. And then it finally got to a point where I guess the Science Channel must have just, their researchers found the story online, and then they, followed up with the scientists over there in Georgia and decided that there was enough there to make it worth going out and filming. So that's really sort of how that came about.
Well, that's very interesting, Bruce. What did you all see when you were there? I don't know what you're at liberty to talk about, but for our listeners, Bruce actually has an article up on the rundownlive.com. If you want to check that out, definitely stop there and read the article. But it did, by the article you wrote, it looked like you had some interesting things there, and you mentioned something that really caught my attention: cement mixed with human bone.
Yeah,
that's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I've seen a lot of things, and I've seen, a lot of paranormal things. I've seen some very, odd sites in the world. I've been underground in Egypt. I've been to a site in the jungle that's not supposed to exist. So when I say, I thought it was one of the weirdest, or if not the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I'm not just sort of, saying that. It really was something that I was weirded out looking at this material. We'd seen a number of sites on the way. This was kind of the apex of the tour, of course. But we had passed by what I would say extensive remains of some kind of civilization, in as much as that there was a lot of worked stone, large stone, for many kilometers away from the site as we approached into it. There was the remains of a paved road. I saw parts of columns, like square columns and stuff at the side of this path, and some sort of concrete I saw, which was, there's a block, I think there's a photo in the article, you've got some sort of strange, it looks like modern concrete.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. So they probably ground down bones and used it in a cement, huh?
Yeah, after seeing all this other stuff, weird up there on this mountain. But yeah, when we're taken into the forest and shown this concrete mix, I kind of was a bit really sort of weirded out. It wasn't even ground up, Kristen. This is what really weirds me. If it was just ground up bones mixed in with some mortar and stones, I wouldn't have been that impressed, because I'm aware that sometimes in the past people have done things like this. They've mixed bone in for whatever reason, but this wasn't like that. The bones appeared to be absolutely fused to the stone, and they also seem to have been melted. And there's points where the bone runs at right angles, but with no crack, no sign of fracture, nothing. It just seems to have been melted into place, as though they took a big pile of human bones, put it into a big container with a load of stones, and then they added either some chemical or some kind of energy, and it melted the bone, and then it reset to form blocks of concrete. Now, I don't know of any technology on Earth that can do that.
Well, we've heard that before, that a lot of these megalithic structures, the cement was actually formed in a liquid format, which is very bizarre, because we have problems doing something like that today. Nonetheless, many years ago, and there's much evidence that supports that one time the world was much more advanced than whatever happened to that prior world, whether it was a flood or a meteor. A lot of it must have been lost, and I find it amazing that you actually went out there and you're looking for these mythological places that are not supposed to be real, and you're actually digging up some evidence to support these theories.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any site in the world same kind of concrete at it. I'd challenge any of your listeners or anyone out there, researchers, to please provide me evidence of this, because obviously I have photos and this, and I will be releasing them later. At the moment I'm being a bit cautious because I'm putting together a very short sort of ebook report on it. But suffice to say that this is not something that I have encountered in any of my research. The bone has clearly been melted, it's fused, and the fact is, what kind of beings, Kristen, do use human bone in that way? Why? Why not have just used, stone? Why? What kind of beings were living up there? It kind of freaked me out a bit, because I'd heard from sort of L.A. Marzulli that this area was supposedly the what he calls Nephilim Central. I'm not a big buyer into the Nephilim stuff, but when you see some kind of remnants of a structure made of melted bone, it does make you ponder. I will say that, because it certainly had a vibe of evil around it. I don't see the necessity to be mangling people up and making them into concrete.
So you don't think it was an accident of any kind? It wasn't like, there was some kind of volcano and people's bones got strewn about. Or
some guy tripped and fell in the cement, huh?
Yeah, just saying. You never know.
There goes Johnny. It's part of the wall now.
I understand. No, I'll tell you why. Because comet impact, which again, though, I've no knowledge of a comet having done that to anyone. But then also a high energy event. I thought maybe even advanced weaponry in the past. I tried to consider what could have done. But the reason why, in the end, I would say no to any of those is because there was another part of this, I suppose it's a buried structure, to be honest, but a few meters away from where I'd seen these large lumps of this concrete, there was what was clearly the entrance to a tunnel, but it's filled with debris. And the lip of the tunnel was made out of the same stuff. So someone had clearly made a tunnel from this material, which was now filled. And you can see it went down at a kind of, a 45-degree angle into the ground, and it was made of the same stone and bone, smooth, like a tunnel entrance. And it was about a meter round, and it was quite clearly it had been made deliberately. So somebody was, using this material to make, constructions, to make chambers, and to make some kind of building. And this is where this ties into.
What does a legend suggest happened in the area? Do you know the history behind what they believe it may be?
Well, I was told by the historian who's with us that he had heard something about legends of bone castles, but he didn't go into anything deeper than that. But I could certainly imagine that, there was some kind of powerful beings living on this mountain that perhaps wanted to scare people, and they may have been eating people, because obviously the legends of giants, there's legends of them carrying people away, as there are in most countries around the world, that the giants didn't always have friendly terms with the normal humans, and the same in Georgia, that sometimes they were carrying people away. Were they eating them, and were they using their bones in these structures? I have no idea, but you could certainly see there was the potential then to validate other aspects of these legends, that perhaps they were actually pretty evil, and that they were using this material to frighten people. If you go there, you may well end up mashed up into a bone concrete mix. It's a pretty scary site in that respect. If you imagine that you had neighbors on the mountain that built castles out of human bone melted into blocks.
People string them up on the poles and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me that if people did that, back in the day, throwing up some bones to try to scare people off their territory. But I was just gonna say, is there any idea that it could have just been regular individuals, or does it give you an idea that they were abnormal?
I'll tell you why. Another thing that makes it an abnormal site is because these bones are fossilized. That they're not just recent bones; they're fossilized. They're completely fossilized. So we're talking about a really ancient site. I don't know how old that structure would be, but if anyone out there can tell me the minimum age for human bones to turn into fossils, then we'll have a minimum date for that site, because the bones are all fossilized.
Yeah, that's a good question. I really am not sure about that.
I'm not sure the minimum age, but I know that puts it well beyond 5,000 years. It puts it well beyond our recorded history.
And you would just you'd have to think that there would be some other type of archaeological digs, or
somebody should be
historians. And you mentioned you did talk with historians and stuff, so they obviously were familiar with the area. But you would just think that it would be a bigger deal, and they would already know what was going on there, and maybe it was just something that there was frowned upon, and they stopped asking questions.
Well, it's a fairly remote site. You've got to bear in mind that, we had to trek about 30 kilometers into basically just wilderness. We're trekking up through forests and then up a mountain. The only people that ever go there are these rangers who sort of double up as farmers. They take a few cows up to graze above the tree line up there, and that's it. There's no permanent habitation there.
So it wasn't on the local footpath or anything. No. There's nobody just walking past every day. So that would make it, more plausible that, it hadn't been discovered in recent time, right?
Precisely, yeah. And also, it's not a place you can live in, because for about sort of 8 months of the year, it's snowing there, and it's got meters of snow up there. So you can't actually live there. So it's a site that really doesn't attract a lot of people. I guess in the last few centuries, perhaps there's been, some minimal use of it, again, for this farming, in the summer, but that's it. And as you can imagine, farmers and rangers, they're not really, they have the same kind of mindset as you and I for, looking, what the hell's that bone concrete? They're thinking, got to get the cows over to here, and, I've got to
they have an agenda.
They're not really looking at that.
Right. Yeah, they're not playing Indiana Jones Explorer. They're not trying to save the history of the world, right? They got stuff to do. No. But, that's what you're doing. You're trying to discover what's actually going on here. And I was going to ask, you mentioned the tunnel. Was there any other signs of like caverns, or was it like a mountainous area? So is there any do you think that they could have had other underground chambers and things?
I certainly do. One of the chaps that was with us, in fact, the guy that took me into the forest to show me this material, he's a sort of Georgian researcher. There's a couple of guys, Irakli and Tenzo, that took me there. into actually see this. They were aware of this already, as well as the site where the bones were found. These two places don't necessarily tie into each other. I mean, just to be clear, the bones are found in a crypt of a ruined structure, a structure that is probably a temple, perhaps a fort, going back around 2,000 or more years. We don't know the precise age, but this is a ruined structure up there. And then some distance away, perhaps another 10-minute walk into the woods, is this material. Now, the two sites may or may not be connected, as I say, but they are aware of both. They've been researching this area a bit themselves. They say there's 3 sites in a triangle up in that area that have this material and have other anomalies. They say also there's trees growing up there above the tree line in places. They say that they think there's some kind of energy up there, which is causing this phenomena. They say it shouldn't be possible. And they said that they feel this is some kind of offshoot of Atlantean type, colonies or something to that sort of, range of thought. And they say that in one of their tests up there, in their experiments, they were banging the ground near this tunnel entrance with a metal rod, and suddenly it broke through and it disappeared. So they know there's a cave there. So, and there's a local story, again, from another one of these farmers or one of these rangers going back a few years, that at one point he'd apparently had stumbled on a cave in that location, roughly, in which there was a mummified giant. So yes, there is legends of caves there, and there's also a test that's been done which shows there is a cavern space there. Again, as well, the local myths about giants say that many of them lived in caves and caverns, and i.e. underground. So this may well be the entrance to the true entrance to this structure, maybe this tunnel. And I wouldn't be surprised if that mummified giant really is there and is still in place. It needs to be excavated.
I was going to say, very interesting. I know that there hasn't been much attention on giants at all, except I know that there's some countries like Romania, they had a big find, 10 years ago, and they found a skeleton of a 10-foot tall human, and they had the pants, they showed how tall he would be and everything like that in the video, and it made the news. That was pretty interesting, but that didn't make it anywhere else in the world, and I saw that they were working along with our government, and I believe the Smithsonian Institute.
Well, they found that satyr horse. Wasn't that in Russia?
Yeah, that was in Russia.
Yeah, that story kind of spiraled off into the strange, didn't it? Into the bizarre, I suppose. I mean, I did sort of read some of it, and it spirals off into really sort of strange claims and really bizarre. I mean, I'm not saying it's not true because I don't know, but the Romanian story seems to go off into a really bizarre claims, doesn't it? And then there's no follow up, so we really don't know what happened there, other than that a story has come out that some guy managed to walk through some sort of energy field and open up some room, and it was full of giant bones and technology, and again, that is possible, but that we haven't had.
I did not hear that story.
No, I mean, I read the follow-ups to the Romanian site, the find, which was on a show there. There was obviously an interview with some researcher, and then in the articles online that follow up, there's various claims that this guy was sort of special. He could walk through an energy field that allowed him to open a room, and then these soldiers and scientists all went in and they found technology and giant bones and all sorts. But the thing is, I haven't seen any supporting evidence or any further research on that.
We've heard a similar story from Richard Gabriel stating when he was underneath the pyramids, there was an energy force that affected them as well. Yeah, the energy field, I mean, that's one of the reasons making me think it's possibly true, because, that is a common feature of some of these old sites, is that people find that as they go into certain areas, they begin to feel unwell. And again, actually, Stephen and Evan Strong over in Australia we work with, they've reported this on a site that they went to. There's a place where there seems to be nothing that grows there, but they went on site and people started to feel ill, and afterwards several people were hospitalised and were coughing up blood and stuff. So, I mean, there was some sort of energetic effect on the site that they went to in Australia, a bit like that. So I mean, this is reported worldwide on sites. So I mean, it is certainly possible. But of course, with the Romanian story, it'd be nice to see the follow up. That's what I'm saying. I don't know whether I tried to find the people that worked on it, and I couldn't find any references. Just what universities they worked with, and then you try to look up the universities and find them. They're not listed, so it was pretty hard. And I don't read Russian, so it made it very difficult. But nonetheless, it's very interesting, and it's very interesting to hear your story and the success that you've had over there. And the Georgian myth, I'm going to have to look into that, maybe find out more about it. But I think it's time we start questioning more of these ancient myths and start looking for some of this stuff. Obviously, there's a lot more to history than we know, and history is very exciting. It's very sensational. And I have to admit, so what was the most, we're getting close to the end here, but I have to ask you, what was the most exciting and astonishing thing about the site? Well, what inspired you the most about the site?
I suppose it was cumulative. I mean, obviously, initially seeing the remnants of the road and it being in the middle of nowhere, thinking, how the hell could anyone have made this enormous, probably 10-kilometer long paved road in the middle of nowhere, going up a mountain, the side of a mountain and whatnot. So, I mean, straight away, you think someone had some pretty impressive engineering skills up here in the ancient past. And then, obviously, you've got the ruined structure up there. Why is it there on this mountain in the middle of nowhere? But yeah, I mean, and the fact that they found giant bones there. But yeah, I mean, the thing that really impressed me is this concrete. I mean, I know that people think, okay, concrete, but I mean, it's
not practical. It's not like
testing it.
Yeah, I mean, some part of it, yes. I mean, the team went back to the UK with some samples of the bone from a bone that was shown to us, which we'll wait to be seen whether that's anything. But I made sure that 2 of the sample containers contained samples of this other bone material, the fossilized bone, because I feel confident that this is the real interesting story, and that this predates even the ancient giant bones that were found in the crypt by a long way. I mean, those were old bones. You can see the browny yellow old bones, but these were stone. These are fossilized bones. So this is the real story. And then what really impressed me is I think that this is a large structure buried by earth, because I took a walk around and it's probably, I've written it all down, but probably about 20 meters away down a slope, I found clearly carved stone in the shape of like a tombstone, a black stone sticking out of the ground, perpendicular to the ground, going straight up. And then ahead of me from the stone, another stone sticking out of the ground. And then ahead of that is really where this bone concrete was. But if you imagine, I think there's under the ground there a very large stone construction that probably runs for a minimum 50 meters, I would say more. I think there's an enormous structure underneath the ground there, and that we were just walking over the top of it. And
you're hearing more and more of that. People who dig really, really deep, they're finding like there's a history that's buried underneath the earth. Exactly. 50, 60, 70, 80, even 100 feet they're finding stuff, which is very crazy and incredible.
Yeah, I think something is buried. There is a large structure there, and that entrance is, just waiting for somebody to just clear it out and to go down and see whether this giant mummy is down there. But yeah, that was the shocking thing, really, and it's the fact that I understand that bone should not be possible to simply melt. It shouldn't be. I don't know the process by which we melt bone and then it hardens again. I mean, if you find out about one, let me know. I know you can break it and crush it and all that, but not a process that just it takes a leg bone and it just melts, goes like that, and it
makes it limp, right? So you can just use it like a rubber band or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, what does that? I don't know of radiation that does it. I don't know of any chemicals or any kind of heat. So that was really out of this world.
And you said you will be releasing that, right? You said you're working.
I will be. Yeah.
So we'll get to see that.
Yeah, I have multiple photos, close-ups of this material.
Oh, come on, man. Send them on over.
Let's let Bruce finish his research, and we'll get that out. And,
I'm writing up a report.
It's definitely interesting. I think it's safe to say that there is hidden history. I think, Bruce, you're on the forefront. You're doing what you need to do. There's still hidden things on this world. There's still undiscovered things that are still buried, just like Kristan just mentioned. 50 feet, beneath us is hidden history. And it might challenge everything that we know right now. And, sometimes that's what we have to do. But I did want to mention, too, Bruce, if you want to mention your site, I know you do awesome work, earthforall.net. You have your article up on the Rundown Live. Anything you want to let people know about when any shows, anything like that is coming out, let us know.
Sure, yeah. Just a couple of ones. I believe that the Unexplained Files, the new season started yesterday. I don't have the precise date for the show that I'm featured in. I would guess it's within the next 2 weeks. So if people kind of watch the Science Channel, if they have a look out for when they update,
we'll post that too as well once that comes out.
We're gonna torrent that stuff. No, I'm just
I'll keep an eye on. Yeah, if one of us finds it, just post it. But I'm not sure. Within the next couple of weeks, I would say for that one. For my website as well, if people have a look today, they'll see that I'm running a freebie. They can download the Ancient Aliens in Australia book for free today on Kindle. That's till midnight Pacific time, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So anyone wants to do that, they can go on there and get that. And other than that, I suppose, yeah, just keep an eye out for this report that I'm writing. Hopefully I'll have that to time roughly with the release of the show, of course, because that'll be when the most interest will be in it. So it'd be nice to try and get some people to sort of, take deeper interest in this site and help in supporting a call for it to be investigated. And just to let people know, I'm still in contact with Irakli, the scientist over in Georgia, who is like us, really. He's an investigator into ancient myths and Atlantis and all the rest of it. And that guy, he's got some amazing knowledge, and he's told me about. I mean, I don't have much time, but I could say he's told me about a mountain over there which ties into the myths of Prometheus. The Proto-Promethean myth actually comes from Georgia. This guy that brought fire from the gods from the top of a mountain. So obviously technology, some kind of technological society on top of a mountain. But there's a mountain over there where there is a cave system, and within it there's all kinds of treasures and strange things and an unknown language engraved onto stone. And he's telling about some really amazing things over there. He says, he thinks it's going to become my favorite mountain in the world. So that's going to be something I'm going to try and update to everyone. There's a language barrier, but we're doing our best to translate between Georgian and English. So I said I help him with, perfecting articles for the English market so that you guys and everyone else can pass it on. So that'll be something else as well I'll be working on, is to share information out of Georgia from Irakli and his
and if
investigation.
you could link those sites, that would be awesome. And then one more time, if you want to you're giving out a free book right now on Kindle, Amazon. One more time, Ancient Aliens in Australia, right?
Yeah, Ancient Aliens in Australia, which is a collaborative book with Stephen and Evan Strong of Forgotten Origins. Sorry.
Right.
ForgottenOrigins.com. And that's downloadable. If you go to my website, they'll see the promotion. There's a click the link through to Amazon shop, and then they'll see that the Kindle book is free, or just obviously search it on Amazon for Ancient Aliens in Australia, and they'll find that. And that's free till midnight tonight Pacific time. And watch the website, of course, for updates. As soon as I have anything else ready to put on there, I will. And as I say, the report, I'm doing a report, one on Georgia and one on Ecuador, which will be full of photos as well as my direct observations, and those will both come out within the next month, I'd say, just as sort of Kindle short ebooks, probably maybe 10,000 words each or a little bit more, just to give it.
We'll definitely
overview.
help get them out there, Bruce. We really
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on and letting us know what you find out there, and we'll definitely have you back on anytime you want to. Come let us know what's going on out there, because we're interested in this. We want to know about the hidden history. We want to know what you're finding out there, and it's definitely interesting stuff.
Yeah, we're researchers of the truth, Bruce. And hey, real quick, by the way, they're working on a product that you'll soon be able to put in your ear, and it'll help you translate things audio-wise right into your noggin there. So pretty soon there won't be so many translation issues. But hey, I want to say, like Mike said, piggyback on that. Thanks for coming on the show. It's nice seeing you again. We're going to have to keep in touch. I'm going to have to talk to you a little bit offline about this, either today or tomorrow. Sure. And that's about all I got, Bruce. You have a good one, and say hi to L.A. Marzulli for us, all right?
Good. Thanks very much, guys. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed being on the show again. And I'll keep you updated, and I'll look forward to getting that translator device. Sounds better than the old Babel fish in the ear, doesn't it? There?
Yeah, like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right?
Yeah. So I'll get myself one of those. Okay. Cheers, guys.
Have a nice night, Bruce.
Yeah,
Thanks
take
a
care,
lot.
Bruce. Awesome guy, as always, guys. Bruce Fenton. Always great to hear something about ancient history. And we're running up at the end of the hour here. I want to let our listeners know FPRN, Daily Paul are leaving us. And want to thank all our listeners. If you guys haven't had a chance to yet, make sure you guys check out the Rundown Live. Share our articles. Download the app to your cell phone and check us out on TuneIn. TuneIn is the best way to listen to the Rundown Live, as well as therundownlive.com/live. Those apps are all available in the Android, iTunes, Amazon, and just about any platform out there. As well, if you're looking to donate and support what we're doing here at the Rundown Live, we take Bitcoin and PayPal, or you can make a purchase at private internet access. And everyone out there, don't forget to go download Bruce Fenton's book.
It's free. Why not?
We're going to post it on our Facebook. We're going to put that link up there right away. You guys go download it. Here, we got 3 hours left. I'm going to go download it.
Make
sure you guys
go over to the Rundown Live Facebook, facebook.com/the Rundown Live. The link will be there. Just support Bruce, because you know what? People are going to hate. We've had a lot of, what would be called pseudo science types on here. And you know what? these guys are going to the Ecuador jungle. They're going to Georgia. They're getting their hands dirty. And,
well, you can't
how can you argue with that?
Science. You can't even argue.
Well, I said so-called pseudoscience.
Yeah, that's true.
They're I'm not labeling them that, others, but I just want people to know that Bruce is really doing this, and we should support him and find out what's really out there. Why not? It would just be like if me or Kristan was doing it. He needs help, and that's what we're trying to do. And obviously, people are interested. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on the Unexplained Files on Discovery, which we'll also will share when that's out. So that being said, like Kristan said, make sure you guys go to the site, all that good stuff. Don't forget about wideawakeamerica.com/live, 10 p.m. The Average Liberators, Corey Washington, Travis Provo, they're going to be on tonight at 10. Other than that, Kristan, I think that's it till tomorrow, man.
Yeah, definitely. Tomorrow we'll have open lines. We're going to catch up on some news.
Right? We got a bunch of stuff.
Great articles on the website. Definitely check those out. Wednesday is Tabitha Wallace, former of Buzzsaw, and she's working on something. She used to be a producer and news anchor over there. Now she's working on a movie.
She's also from this area.
Yeah, she's also from Wisconsin, so it's a hometown cutie. And then we'll also get a chance on Thursday. Robert Burke will be joining us. He's running
Libertarian candidate for governor in Wisconsin. So we'll be doing open lines and news tomorrow and a couple more guests this week. That being said, I guess that's it, Kristan. We love you guys in the chat. Thanks again to Bruce Fenton, earthforall.net. We'll be back tomorrow, guys.
The Rundown.
Stay classy, Milwaukee. You guys have a good night. And check therundownlive.com for updates and new articles up there right now. Nah. That was my